I am Sanjay, and in this course, we will discuss the class diagram of Battleship game. So, let's see how we can create classes from the requirements. So, the first requirement is this game will be played between two players but should be extensible for multiple players. So, we can see there is a game which is a noun and players is a noun. So, we can create a game class and a player class. Later, we will see how the relationship can be established between these two classes. Each player will have his own board of m cross n size. So the player is already there, and then there is a board. So for board, we need to create a class. I have created this composition relationship here because the board belongs to this player only. Once the player's life cycle is over, then there will be no meaning of this board. Third requirement, each player will have 5 hidden ships in the board which other players had to destroy. So here we can see that there are some hidden ships. We can create something similar to ship. So I have created an item which belongs to a ship, and there are multiple status for this item. Either it can be aircraft carrier, battleship, submarine, destroyer, or patrol. And then in the given screenshot, let's see the screenshot. This is the screenshot. In the given screenshot, first board is of the current player where he has hidden his ships, and the second board belongs to the opponent whose ships he has to destroy. So here we can see that this is one board and this is one board. So you can consider this as the current player's board and this is the opponent board. So how this game is played? The players have to hide their ships, and the current player will have to bomb the missile on the other player's board. So we can see the method bomb missile here, which will be executed when the player is bombing the missile on the other player's board. So let's go through this requirement again. In the given screenshot, first board is of the current player where he has hidden his ships, and the second board belongs to the opponent whose ships he has to destroy. After bombing the missiles to the opponent's board, the missiles can either hit this ship or miss the ship. So in this statement, we can see only ship as the noun. So for the ship, we have already created a class called item. On one hit, only one part from the square. So here we can see this square. Square means the cell of the board. So once you'll see this board is made of multiple cells, or we can say the square which has some kind of coordinate. So this can also be created as a class. So here you can see there is a class square which has a row and column which represents the coordinates of the square. So on one hit, only one part of the ship will be destroyed, and once all the squares of the ship is destroyed, then only the ship is considered as destroyed. So what it means, a ship is occupied by 5 coordinates. So once all these cells or all these squares are hit by the opponent, then only it will be considered that the ship has been destroyed. We have one more status here, the item status, which is untouched, partially destroyed, and destroyed. So if the ship is created but it is not touched, none of the squares is hit, then the status will be untouched. If some of them are hit, then the status will be partially destroyed. And if all the squares of the ship has been hit, then it is considered that the ship has been destroyed. So once all the ships of one player is destroyed, then he will lose the game. So one player can have multiple items or multiple ships. So if the current player destroy all the ships of the opponent, then only he will win the game. So once the first player bombs the missile on the opponent's board, either that's a hit or a miss. After then, the next player will bomb the missile. That is one rule of the game. So yeah, based on all this requirement, we have created the classes. Now let's see what is the relationship between these classes. So here we can see each game will have multiple players, and the relationship between game and player is composition. Now what does it mean? It means game has multiple players, but Once the game's life cycle is ended, then there is no meaning of the player's class. It means all the players will be there in the game object. The relationship is one to many because one game can have multiple players. Then the game will have a winner. But there is 1 to 0 to 1 relationship. Now, why 1 to 0 to 1 relationship? Because at any instant of time, there will be a winner available or not. The winner can be found only once the game is over. Otherwise, there will be no winner. Then each game will be having a winning strategy. So winning strategy is an interface which has two types of strategy. One is all ships down winning strategy and one is battle down winning strategy. So in this application, we are just using two strategy, but it is up to you how many strategy you want to use in the game. In all ships down winning strategy, what we are doing is if any player is destroying all the ships of the opponent, then only this player wins. In battleship down winning strategy, what we are doing is if the current player is destroying only the battleship of the opponent, then he will win the game. So these are two strategies that we are using in the game. And then each game will be having a player selection strategy. In player selection strategy, we have this method get next player which will be implemented by round robin player selection strategy and random player selection strategy. In the round robin player selection strategy, we are just taking the next player as the current player. And in the random player selection strategy, let's say there are multiple players, then we will be using some random number to get the next player. And each game will be having one game status. So when we have created the game object, the status will be not started. When we have started the game, the status will be in progress, and once the game is over, then the status will be over. Each player has one board. So there is one aggregation relationship because the board belongs to the player. And once the player life cycle is over, then the board will also be over and it is of no use. The relationship is 1 to 1 because each player has exactly one board and that board belongs to only that player. Now, each board has multiple squares. So there is again a composition relationship which says that one board has multiple squares. And we are giving the name to the reference variable as squares heat map because in the board we have all the squares, but each square can be either hit or missed by the opponent. Then the item will have the item status which says that it is untouched, partially destroyed or destroyed. An item has one item type which says which type of ship this item is. And each item has the squares map which says that the which square has been hit of this item. Let's understand this by taking one example. So the player has submarine and destroyer. Okay, submarine is consist of three squares. So if the opponent has two of the squares of the current player, it means that those two squares will be true in the squares hit map. So that's why we are taking this as a map. And then there is one more enum which is player status. So each player has one status if player is playing or player is lost or player is not playing. So yeah, that's all from this class. See you in the next class. Thank you.